Hey everyone, Chris here, and I just want to say thanks for a fantastic year. We've seen so much growth. As of recording this, we're nearly on 10,000 subscribers, and as a little end of year reward, I thought we'd wrap it up with a compilation of every single short we've uploaded this year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Spider-Man India's design sucks, and no, I'm not talking about the one from Across the Spider-Verse, I'm talking about this one. The original Spider-Man India came out in like 2004. That's way before the Spider-Verse comics even started coming out. He looked like your standard Spider-Man, except he was wearing baggy white pants, curly shoes, and a very bland Spider-Man logo that just doesn't pop. So how did we get this new design? Well, apparently the people that made Across the Spider-Verse put together a whole Indian team, including the actor who played Spider-Man India, to come up with a character that was cool and authentic and just, I mean, he's amazing. But it gets even better because after seeing the success of this, we got a 2023 comic series of Spider-Man India, and it ends with him getting an awesome new suit. One of my favorite elements about this suit is I love that the logo goes into the negative space. And he's got the bangles, even if they're not the cool yo-yos that we saw in Across the Spider-Verse. Also, he's got the hair coming out of the top, but Spider-Man India is allowed to do that. It works for him. Let me know which Spider-Man India design is your favorite.
So here's a thought. Did you know that the symbiotes were originally dragons? The guy who created the symbiotes, like Venom, is named Null, the Lord of Darkness. He's got this whole medieval look going for him that puts even David Bowie to shame. He's also got this armor and that necrosword that we actually saw for a second in Thor Love and Thunder. He's got this love of dragons that rivals even Hiccups or that one character from Game of Thrones or even Donkey. No one loves dragons more than Donkey. That's why Null has a dragon emblazoned on his chest. A dragon that you'll notice looks a lot like a spider logo on the symbiote suit. But how do we know it's a dragon? Well, if you look closely, it's not a thorax, but a tail. And those aren't legs, but wings. And this makes sense because in Null's earlier days when he was still trying to conquer worlds, he created symbiote dragons. Two of those dragons arrived on Earth, which were struck down by Thor Odinson, which created the symbiotes. From the symbiotes, we got Carnage, Scream, and most importantly, Venom, who rocked a very similar spider logo.
Screw talking about Pal World. I want to talk about a monster-filled world that I'm really excited for. DokeV is a creature-collecting open-world game set in this crazy-looking city. Immediately, it gives me this vibes of the Deoxys or Pokemon Heroes movies, where you just have this cool city filled with these cool monsters, and you just get to mess around and have fun. These monsters, or Dokebi, are based on Korean spirits of the same name, and they've made for some great designs with really quirky styles. I love all of them. Just look at this polar panda bear, this pink anteater, and this neat little pineapple guy. They look great, but most importantly, they really fit in with the style of the game and the world that the developers have created. Also, the variety of transportation is something I'd like to see back in Pokemon games. I miss when my HM slave wasn't also my bike/plane. I mean, from Spider-Man swinging, rocket-powered skateboarding, this game has everything. And I'm probably going to be using this adorable little llama a lot. Just look at his little face. But yeah, that's DokeV. It's still in development with no release date, but I can't wait. And honestly, Pokemon transport changes way too often. In X and Y, you didn't only get the bicycle, but also roller skates and some ride Pokemon that were limited to certain areas. Alola kicked this up a notch with 8 ride Pokemon that basically meant that you could go anywhere and have them at any time without having an HM slave. For me, it was riding Stoutland because I love finding hidden items, and I swear to God, the game took me 5 times longer, but I found every goddamn hidden item. The Let's Go games gave us 18 Pokemon, which didn't really do very much, but I really loved clinging for dear life onto Snorlax's belly. Back in Sword and Shield, we got the Rotom bike, and I have to ask, at what point is it unethical to keep shoving Rotom into everything electronic? I'm pretty sure he was quite happy haunting fridges and lawnmowers, and now he's in everything, including my phone, all the time. Get out of my DMs, Rotom. God, I sound like a boomer going on like about how technology is everywhere, and Hisui basically did the same as Alola and gave us useful ride Pokemon, and then in Scarlet and Violet, Pokemon equal bike. If you don't remember some of these, it's probably because, here's a short thought, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch were not the first mutants in the MCU. No, that title does go to Professor X when he showed up in Multiverse of Madness, and will probably continue to go on when we get Deadpool 3, which should promise at least a few more mutants in the MCU. But back to my original point, yes, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are not actually mutants. They're experiments by the High Evolutionary, and this was revealed to us in a comic where Scarlet Witch attacked everyone she was related to, which only included Quicksilver. Magneto was unaffected, revealing that he wasn't their father and that they weren't mutants, and that when the High Evolution evolutionary returned them to their biological parents, he was actually returning them after experimenting on them and giving them their powers. This weirdly ties into the MCU because Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver in the MCU were just experiments. Or were they? If we ever do get a Magneto, we might get his actual biological daughter, Polaris, who has magnetic powers, which if you think about it should have been a dead giveaway because mutants in the comics typically get their powers from their parents, much like how the Summer family has energy-based powers. Did the Pokemon world have real dinosaurs? Pokemon has hinted at real animals a few times, but I think this is the first time I've noticed it mention a real-world dinosaur. Fluttermane is rumored to be the ghost of a real-life dinosaur, the Pterosaur. Pokemon is no stranger to dinosaurs. Back in 2021, there was this really cool real-life exhibit that went around all museums in Japan, and it would show the fossil Pokemon with their real dinosaur counterpart. There's a bunch of like art and videos around it, and it looks so cool. I wish it had come here, but nothing cool ever comes here, so I understand why it didn't. In Gen 7, there was a fossil literally called fossilized dino, but more importantly, the Japanese for fossilized dino is fossilized plesiosaur. Yeah, plesiosaur, the thing Lapras is based on. That means this part of the Pokemon is actually just straight up a real dinosaur. This Pokemon is half actual dinosaur, which is just crazy, and I think that answers the question.
The Godzilla x Kong trailers feels like it was written over the course of a bunch of bring your children to work days, because a lot of these shots just feel like two kids playing with giant action figures and seeing what happens. I'm all for a punch me up movie where all we get to see are monsters just being the absolute out of each other, but so many ridiculous things are happening. Admittedly, when Kong jumped into Godzilla and rode him like a freaking Humvee, that was pretty cool. But then I saw the shot from another trailer from another country, and Godzilla and Kong are using Scar like a freaking baseball. I'm all for the suspension of disbelief, but what is physics? And I know they're just trying to sell toys by changing the designs of Godzilla and Kong, but Godzilla is being powered by the center of the earth, and all Kong gets is a metal arm, a metal glove. At least give him two so he can square up like Mike Tyson. Or better yet, we know that this universe has laser technology. Just pop them onto Kong and you're good. And we finally got to see what Shimu looks like, and they are enormous. I mean, if that's the head, imagine the size of the rest of the body. Okay, fine, I'm pretty excited. Godzilla and Kong are tiny. It's rumored that these beasts stand at 130 meters and 110 meters tall, respectively, in the new Empire movie, which obviously contrasts with their initial sizes when they made the first debuts in 2014 and 2017, where Godzilla stood at 108 meters tall and Kong at a teeny weeny 31.6 meters tall. So clearly, there was a significant size change over the last few years, especially with Kong. So why do they feel so tiny? Well, the simple answer is that I don't really like the way that they're presenting these titans. A lot of my complaints about the more recent movies is that we're not getting a lot of camera angles from our perspective as we're looking up at these crazy destructive forces of nature. Instead, we'll often see shots from much higher up, making it feel like the camera is floating and spinning around like we're watching a WWE match, which in turn make the monsters look a lot smaller. These less grounded shots don't feel like they've been recorded from an actual camera, so it makes it less of an immersive experience compared to when the camera is actually angled from a street level. That way you actually feel the danger of being in the same city as these monsters. I'm just saying, it really does feel like...
How would you fix Pokemon Go? I've been playing Pokemon Go since it came out, and honestly, I'm getting a little bit tired of it. Firstly, the characters. They've just added a new character called Mateo because I think we're all pretty sick of Professor Willow. The problem with a game like Pokemon Go is while you can have short events, there's not really any room for fleshing out a longer story. And that kind of gets boring after a while. I remember them trying to use the team leaders to tell some kind of concise story, but that never went anywhere. Also, in terms of world building, we haven't really got any more built into the world for a while. And I'm sorry, but changing the color of the Pokestops to orange for Halloween is not changing the world. I'm also tired of paid events. Even the free events are just more annoying than anything. Yes, it gives me a chance to shiny hunt, but it also feels really boring when all I've seen for 3 days are starter Pokemon, and in my once a month excursion to the beach doesn't result in me getting the Sandygast that I really want. There's enough people and plans that could help Pokemon Go, but I don't think Niantic's gonna implement them. But lastly, I have to ask you guys.
We're ranking all the Majin Boo's forms by the designs, let's go. Fat Boo's design is a combination of Earthworm Jim and a piece of gum. Out of all the designs, I think this still remains as the most iconic one. S tier. Don't do math. But also a great design. I know it's not pink, but he looks incredibly intimidating. The gray skin, the skinny body, and the unfeeling facial expression tells the deeper relationship between the original Fat Boo and this one. That's an A tier. Now this right here was my Voldemort. Super Boo being leaner and without a cape and without those silly yellow gloves makes him so terrifying. I mean, who knew Black nail polish could be scary. S tier. When Super Boo absorbed Gotenks, he got a nose for some reason, and I know the crop top is meant to show who he's absorbed, but it just doesn't work here. He just in general looks like a very silly character. D tier. Super Boo with the Piccolo fit does kind of work though. I'll give it a B. What's up with villains in Dragon Ball Z evolving and then becoming more attractive? The orange gi looks so good on him, and that long tendril gives him a great silhouette. S tier. Kid Boo's design is pretty scary, but I don't feel like it's as good as Super Boo or the others that I mentioned. It's still an A tier though. Yep, that's all the forms and we're done.
Let's rank how well Netflix adapted these Avatar characters. Part 1. Aang is just not silly enough. We need him to act more like a kid instead of being as serious as an actual Buddhist monk. We're gonna have to put him in B tier. For Katara, she's just generally lacking that sense of hope and virtuosity that the original character has. I don't mind that she's not falling in love with Aang, but she still needs to believe that he's gonna save the world. C tier. They have ruined a perfect character. Sokka is not funny, and he has no flaws. He's just boring. C tier. I think they did Zuko really well. The one scene I have a problem with is that he fought back in the Agni Kai when he really shouldn't have. But otherwise, I think the character's doing a great job. A tier. Uncle Iroh is hands down the best character in the show. His portrayal is spot on. Now move on before I start crying. S tier. Appa looks really good in CGI, but he's really lacking those moments with Aang where they just show that special boy in his best trained energy. B tier. Momo was another great adaptation, and I also think he looks good in CGI. I legit cried when I thought they were going to kill him off, so he's going in S tier. The live action Avatar characters ranked part 2. Like and subscribe because there are more and they do not get better. I definitely miss Firelord Ozai being this ominous, shadowy character that just kind of lurks in the background, but I do like the casting choice. I'm excited to see where he goes. Let's put him in B tier. Recasting the OG actor as the Cabbage Salad was a crazy power move. That's going to be an S tier. I don't know how I expected them to do a buff old man in live action, but it wasn't this. He did not need to be this hard on Aang. And where was his giant rabbit? I'm knocking him down to a C tier. This might be a hot take, but I think the last live action actor looked better with the wig. This wig was distractingly bad. The character is okay, but I'd probably just put her in a B tier. Yeah, there's a reason she's dating a guy from the Water Tribe. They made her whole character thirsty. She's still a badass fighter though, so A tier. Grand's exposition scene was rough, but giving her the Water Scroll was a really smart choice in terms of pacing. I'm gonna put her in C tier. I like this version of Gyatso, and I was glad that he got more screen time, but it did take away from Aang forming new relationships, so gonna put him down to B tier. Live action Avatar characters part 3. Like and subscribe and I'll rank something else. Commander Zhao is just as much of a jerk as he is in the show, but he does seem to be bossed around by Azula a little bit more. B tier. Feel like he didn't get fleshed out, so let's hope there's at least character development in Ba Sing Se. B tier. The Mechanist, I love Daniel Pudi, even though I missed seeing the Northern Air Temple, but I'm gonna put him and his son Tio in A tier. June is an interesting character. I think she's majorly underutilized, but I do have to ask, how did she get to that fire temple? Can her mole thing fly? B tier. Seeing Sozin commit the genocide was a little bit harsh, but the fire jetpacking thing was really cool. I'm gonna put him in S tier. I've seen a lot of people say that Azula is just cracking way too early. She's supposed to be perfect heir to the throne at the beginning, so B tier. Let's end it with the 2 avatars. Kyoshi kicked butt with all 4 elements. There's a reason there's a whole village named after her. She's definitely an S tier. Roku, it looks like he found Sokka's humor in the spirit realm and decided to go with it. I do think the comet should have been mentioned in the scene. A tier. They made Pokemon drones a real thing. And no, I'm not talking about Rotom Drone from Gen 8. They had an amazing event to celebrate Pokemon Go in Japan where they got all these drones equipped with LEDs to form giant Pokemon in the sky. They had classics like Pikachu, Charizard, Snorlax, all while fireworks were going off. But they also had crazy choices like Ho-Oh, Rayquaza, and Alolan Exeggutor. And these weren't just still boring flat images. No, these were 3D and they were kind of animated, which is pretty insane that you can do with drones. They even had an announcer saying the names of the Pokemon, their Japanese names of course, while the whole thing was going on. I don't know if I was just blown away by the technology or that this was an event for Pokemon Go of all things. They also did a One Piece version, which is awesome because I am currently obsessed with One Piece. I would love to go to an event like this. It would be so cool. I'm just really concerned that Gen 10's gimmick should be Shinies 2.0. Back in Gen 8, they gave us Square Shinies, a really disappointing sequel to Shinies that basically was just a different animation and exactly the same shiny. This functioned purely as bragging rights and served no other purpose, and as of Gen 9 has been removed. A sequel to Shinies would be Variant Shinies. Every Pokemon gets a second kind of shiny that you can catch. This gives us the opportunity to make bad Shinies good, Shinies that stay the same different, and even good Shinies way better. If you think Red Gyarados is cool, what about a Golden Gyarados that evolves from Golden Magikarp? Magikarp. I love when Pokemon does simple variants like the Magikarps and Magikarp Jump, or that one time Gengar was different in the Volcanion movie for no reason and it was just better. Things like that from spin-off games serve as the perfect foundation for second forms of shinies. But I think that
Crispy Not Here wants us to do Joker. We have to give credit where credit is due, but these were the 60s. It was a campy Saturday version of the Joker, which was good then, but not as good now, and that's Mustache. Yep, that's a detail. Jack Nicholson is the epitome of what you can actually do with this character. He got the mannerisms down, he's absurd, he's crazy. Only thing, if I have to nitpick, his acting just feels like Jack Nicholson and not the Joker. Still an A tier. Let me not mansplain why Heath Ledger's the goat, so let's put him in S tier and move on. From what I've been told, the writing for the Joker is pretty bad in Gotham, but I've seen some scenes of Cameron Monaghan and he is insane. It's like a mix of Jack Nicholson and Heath Ledger. He is the Joker through and through, even though they're not allowed to actually use his name. S tier. I felt a little damaged after that performance. D tier. So don't get me wrong, Joaquin Phoenix is an amazing Joker, but he doesn't have that intimidation and brutality and aggressiveness of the Joker. He's unnerving and creepy, but that's about it. B tier. Oh, so I forgot about Monaghan's second version of the Joker. It's pretty good, subtle, creepy, but not as good as his first version. Still an A tier. If you haven't already seen the Transformers 1 film trailer, it looks so good. I think some people will be a little disappointed that it's animated, but being an animation fan myself, I love it. It's amazing. I'm really interested to see the origins of all these different characters. I think my problem of seeing and hearing about Cybertron over the years of being a Transformers fan has been that I haven't actually seen what Cybertron looks like when it's not at war, so it's nice to see what life on Cybertron actually looks like before the Decepticons take over. Keegan Key as Bumblebee is such a good choice. He's going to carry a lot of these comedic moments, I can tell. Transformers has taken itself very seriously in the past, so it's nice to see this more fun, light side to it. Not to say that there won't be serious moments like when Megatron finally betrays Prime and then becomes the Decepticon that we all know and love. I think some of you guys won't even like the designs of these characters, but I think they're great. It can't be any worse than Earthspark. Ugh. After seeing the trailer, I literally just picked up my microphone and started recording. I just really wanted to talk about this, even though I'm in a super equi office at the moment. But still, I think the trailer looks really good. We should give it a chance and let's see what happens. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.
Who tried to kill Arven's dog? A huge storyline in Scarlet and Violet is helping Arven heal his Mabostiff with the Herba Mystica. From Arven's descriptions, we know that it was a version-exclusive Paradox Pokemon, but which ones? With all the time he spends with the box art legendaries, I think it's safe to rule them off. Because he doesn't react to them, I'm also ruling off both Paradox Don fans and any Pokemon he encountered on the way down to Area Zero. Most people rule off Iron Valiant and Roaring Moon because of their spawn location. It's a lame excuse, but this time I'll take it. Since the release of both DLCs, we've got 6 more Paradox Pokemon, the Lightsabers of Justice and the Legendaries Before Time, and one of these version exclusive pairs lines up perfectly. Iron Crown mentions an incident where it cut everything around it to pieces, an incident I'm willing to bet involved Arven's best bud, and if that doesn't convince you, the counterpart Gouging Fire's Pokédex entry describes it as rampaging and spouting pillars of flame. Yes, rampaging is the exact word that Arven uses, and I don't think this is a coincidence. So how fitting is it the last possible Paradox Pokemon we may ever get were the ones...
Great. Well, you're gonna be on a video screen. Yes, that's true.
So can I just shake your hand in character?
Yes.
Let's do it with the robot hand.
Whoa. Hey! Great. Oh my god. Oh! Yeah! Stop. How can I help you? Lovely. Awesome. Oh, jeez. Okay, so they gave me chills.
You are shaking the hand of the greatest mage of the Crimson Demons.
Thank you. Okay. Oh my god. Okay.
Do a finger snap.
Welcome to Comic-Con, guys. Yeah. That's a lot of cosplayers. God. No way, I'm not allowed to swear, sorry.
I'm here at Comic-Con with Veronica Taylor, the voice of Ash Ketchum. Veronica, how are you enjoying the convention so far?
Welcome to Comic-Con, we're gonna be, here I go!
We're gonna go to all the cosplayers to go and interview them and ask them about everything they've done. I can't wait, let's go. Why did you kill all those kids?
Wow.
Please be careful with hot glue, it hurts.
You seen any like really good cosplays?
I feel like you're gonna have to interview them.
Do you believe that Griffith is innocent?
Yes. I'll do it again.
Definitely like a flight tour.
My favorite part of Comic Con is watching every other person's cosplayers, how amazing the people are.
I'm taking pictures and just getting, excited for this thing.
It's astonishing what you can find here.
Are Pokemon bikes a thing of the past? Originally, the bicycle cost you 1 million Poké-Dollars, which was one more than you could actually obtain in the Gen 1 games. And in case you're wondering, every bicycle is described as being foldable. That's how they fit in the backpack. One of my personal favorite bikes was in Gen 3 when we got the Mac bike and the Acro bike. It always super annoyed me that you couldn't have both at the same time, at least till the post game, but it was definitely awesome being able to do sick tricks. Then in Gen 4, just like Luffy, we could go into 3rd and 4th gear. It didn't give us any extra powers, but it did allow us to drive up muddy slopes and hop over tiles, which was pretty cool. You might not know in Gen 2 that we nearly got a skateboard. Kinda bummed that never happened, but we did get roller skates in Gen 6, and I used them a lot more than the bike in that generation. Despite me being conflicted about whether or not rotom bikes should be allowed, I do think riding on water would make me want to ride a bike. Since Pokemon continues to lean into ride Pokemon, and our latest iteration of the bike was a ride Pokemon, it makes me wonder, I have dropped everything to talk about this. Lego One Piece is Lego Zelda is finally real. There have been some really high quality Lego Zelda fan sets, but now we can finally say that we have an official set and it looks cool. Apparently it was leaked that we were getting this great Deku Tree, and a lot of people were mad that it wasn't Hyrule Castle, but honestly, looking at this, I way prefer it to Hyrule Castle. Not a fan of 2-in-1 sets. I've never loved them, even as a kid. I always found it super annoying that you had to break what you just built to build something else. I think the set could have worked really well as like a rotating set where the back was one tree and the front was the other, and maybe it opened up so that you could get to the middle. It might financially bankrupt me, but if I bought 2 sets, I could have them both. I love the Ocarina of Time details. We get 4 minifigures. I think they look really great. And just all the attention to details like the Skulltula, the little cooking area for Breath of the Wild Link. I'm so excited we now have Mario, Animal Crossing, and Zelda. Like, subscribe, and let me know what other Nintendo games would make really good Lego sets. Today I thought I'd rank mythical Pokemon based purely on how fire their movies were. Let's go. This is by far the mythical with the most screen time. Mew has had 2 amazing movies, the original movie and the Lucario movie. This dude is pure cute. Let's put him in S tier. I tend to give Gen 2 a hard time, but I love time travel movies, and it had Suicune in it. A tier. Jirachi's movie taught us a valuable lesson about being careful what you wish for, but even if I knew it was stealing, I would probably still wish for stuff. Let's put him in S tier. This was one of the first mythicals that wasn't baby, but he's cool. I like how in the movie he feels really creepy and alien, so I'm probably gonna put him in A tier as well. These two are basically the same thing. Manaphy and Fione are probably someone's favorite little guys, but they're not mine. It was an alright movie. I'm just gonna put him in C tier. Darkrai is straight up the misunderstood emo kid of the mythicals. His movie had a pretty great twist, so I'm gonna put him in A tier. I don't need an explanation why Shaman had mean girl energy, but I was here for that rude attitude. Let's put it in S tier. Like and subscribe and let me know if you want part 2. There's a lot more mythicals. Ranking mythical Pokemon based on their debut movies. This God Llama put the myth in mythical. Gen 4 had some of the best movies. This one was a time travel movie and it had some weird religious undertones. Arceus has to be an S tier. Gen 5 movies peaked early. Victini was such a cute little guy, and making the plot about how he was trapped in this castle was so sad. S tier. I'm probably gonna put Keldeo pretty high because the TCG card was like the trump of my deck. His movie was pretty great. I love that the trio is based on the Three Musketeers. S tier. Every time I think of Meloetta, I think of when we had cool events. It only appeared in a few episodes in the anime, but I do remember really liking the character. B tier. Another incredibly sad plot. Genesect's whole story was really sad, it being this lost ancient creature that didn't know how to live in a modern world, and they brought Mewtwo back, so let's give it an A tier. I have to confess, I haven't actually watched the Diancie movie. I heard it got really mixed reviews, and I just kind of skipped it. To be fair, I'm gonna say C tier. You guys can let me know if that's fair. But in the meantime, hit subscribe. I'm ranking mythical Pokemon based on their movies. Portals are a very cool power. It doesn't get cooler than Primal Kyogre and Shiny Rayquaza showing up, an S tier. The first fire water type and the whole theme of this movie was steampunk, let's put it in A tier. Same movie, loved it in the anime as well, A tier. It was a good movie, but Marshadow seemed like a side plot, D tier. Before I continue ranking the rest, look at the graph and help us out by hitting subscribe. For that one comment looking for Zeraora, here he is. Really enjoyed this movie about interconnected characters, B tier. Gotta give these two credit for being the first Pokemon that didn't show up in a movie but actually showed up in Pokemon Go. That's an A tier move. This is a very rough Pokemon design, but the fact that this movie was based on Tarzan, which is one of my favorite movies, bumps it up a little bit, so I think I'm gonna give it a B tier. I like the concept of a mythical that actually has its own legendary trio associated with it. Patreon's pretty cool, but it doesn't have a movie or an anime. I'll give it a very neutral C tier. Well guys, that was the last time. The complete history of Jessie in a minute. Not your first time here? Consider subscribing. After her mom Miyamoto disappeared when she was just young, Jessie grew up in a poor orphanage with very little food, and her fondest memory being eating snow. When her dreams of becoming a pop idol failed, she then went on to becoming a nurse. She had equally as bad luck though, because she went to a nursing school for chancies. Does this explain the pink hair? She then met James at Pokemon Trainer School, and the two later joined the infamous Bridge Bike Gang, where she was known as Chainer Jessie. But inevitably, the two went their separate ways. Jessie was also a model and spent some time in the Hoenn region, probably trying to make it as a Pokemon coordinator and win contests. The list of things Jessie has done just gets crazier. She was apparently a weather girl and a ninja at some point. Eventually, she would join the Team Rocket Academy, where she would then meet James again and would be introduced to Meowth. They met their rivals Butch and Cassidy, and while first impressions weren't great, they soon became the wonderful loving trio that we know them to be today. And that's the complete history of James in under a minute. James's childhood was quite the opposite of Jessie's. He was the only child of 2 millionaires and was brought up in a lavish, luxurious mansion to be a perfect gentleman. This led to him being engaged to a girl named Jezebel, but when he found out she was more toxic than a Grimer, he called it off and ran away. He was also enrolled in the Pokemon Trainer School, where he met Jessie and received the lowest scores in the school's history. He then joined the infamous Bridge Bike Gang with Jessie in a town called Sunnytown, and his nicknames were Little Jim or Trainer James, because he still used training wheels on his bike. There's a little bit of conflicting canon, because when they meet at the Team Rocket Academy, it's like they've never met before, even though they were clearly in the bike gang together when they were younger. I think it's safe to assume that they just went their separate ways at some point, and when they met back up, they didn't really get off on the best foot. Eventually though, after their time at the academy, he would become best friends with Jessie, and of course their newly met team member, a talking Meowth, and that's what led them to become the lovable trio we know them to be today. And that's the complete history of Meowth in under a minute. Meowth's journey began at Camp Pokehurst. Waking up alone in the rain, starving, he tried to eat baseballs, and after he made a bit of a mess, the coach hung him up from a tree. From that tree, he was able to watch the movie That Darn Meowth and dreamed of a better life, just like in the film. When he got to Hollywood, however, he was still seen as a stray and continued to live on the street. Eventually, he joined a gang of Meowths led by a Persian, and he stayed with the group for a while. Not your first time here? Consider subscribing. One day, he met a female Meowth called Meowsy, who rejected him for being poor and saying that she preferred humans. Now determined, Meowth taught himself to walk and talk like a human. Later, he says this is the reason he couldn't learn the move Payday. Again, Meowsy rejected him, calling him a freak. Heartbroken by this, he remembered his first word, Rocket, and was inspired to join Team Rocket. Meowth is constantly claiming that he was once Giovanni's top cat, even though in the flashback episode we see that he was more of a servant to Giovanni, and after he spilled Giovanni's coffee, he soon got himself assigned to Jessie and James, and thus the villainous trio was formed. And that
Superman in cartoons tier list. Superman from 1944 was a pretty iconic design. The proportions were very naturalistic, and though I'm not really a fan of the emblem being black, despite being from the 1940s, I think the reason why it still holds up is because the inventor of the rotoscope, Max Fleischer, was the one in charge of directing this animation. C tier. And then we get Wayne Boring Superman, and unfortunately his surname kind of rubbed off a little bit too much on this design. There's something wrong with his face just not having any character in it. D tier. This is an iconic design that flows well and is absolutely iconic, and takes all the previous amazing things about Superman and stylizes it in a way that actually works. Easily an S tier. Come on, you know it is. Great design, but he looks way older than Superman Superman needs to look. Because they've added the extra lines in the cheekbones, he just looks like a middle-aged dude. But the added shine to the hair and detail to the muscles, amazing. B tier. In Justice League Unlimited, Superman spent more time in the sun and less on meth. S tier. Like and subscribe if you want to see more.
Let's rank hell of a boss characters. I didn't like Blitz at first, but he's definitely grown on me as we've gotten more backstory. I enjoyed the direction his arc is taking, which is fitting because he's an arc imp, and I'm excited to see him grow as a character. A tier. I blame Sam from Danny Phantom for why sarcastic goth characters are some of my favorites, but Luna's one of my favorites, and she has a great tragic backstory. She also has the best lines in the show, so that's going to be an S tier. Before I continue, look at this burning graph, and if you haven't, hit subscribe. Millie is the best part of the M&M power couple. I really enjoyed the mini-sode where we got to see her relationship with her sister. I love that she's always just so cheerful as she murders people. That's going to be another A tier. Invaderism was one of those shows that really freaked me out as a kid, but I like Moxie's character. Giving him the moral compass and being the voice of reason nicely balances the team, but he isn't as great as the others, so I'm going to put him in B tier. I honestly can't rank any of these characters low. I love how Stolos has progressed as a character through the show, probably more than any other character. It helps that the animation quality goes up every time he's on screen. I'm also going to put him in S tier. I thought today, let's rank some more hell of a boss characters. Fizz is a very insecure character, so it's great to see him healing and in a relationship with Asmodeus, who really cares about him. Plus he plays a mean trumpet. That's an S tier. Speaking of, it's great that despite being the sin of lust, Ozzy really believes in true love, and after rewatching his first scene, I think he wasn't wrong to tell Moxie to change up a song. A tier. Go ahead and gaze at the graph and then stab that subscribe button. Totally biased because I love Kesha. This is an awesome take on the character of Gluttony, not being represented by a big fat guy, but by someone who encourages you to just indulge yourself. It's a super refreshing take. S tier. I really enjoyed the Seeing Stars episode, and after hearing her in the trailer, I hope we get another episode focused on her and her relationship with Stolos. A tier. I'm a huge fan of The Walking Dead, so I was just floored when Norman Reedus was in the show. I know he's a character that's not everybody's favorite, but I do like the eat the rich mentality. B tier. I like how she's this reoccurring character who gives us a good look into Blitzo's past, but also puts him in perspective. That speech and apology to her was brilliant. She's another A tier. I can't wait any longer. What I think is happening in season 2 of Netflix's One Piece. Following our long park, we'll head to Logtown. And of course, we'll need two very important characters, Smoker and Tashigi, as well as the return of Jeff Ward's buggy. Then we get to Reverse Mountain, where of course Clive Russell from Game of Thrones will be playing Crocus, and we'll meet Laboon the giant whale, who'll probably end up swallowing the ship. We haven't got a cast for Vivi, aka Miss Wednesday yet, but we will be meeting number 9. We'll then have the Whiskey Peak arc, then we'll get to Little Garden, which was hinted at a while back, and I'm very excited to see how the effects team will handle both dinosaurs and the giants. This is also where I expect the rest of the Baroque Works cast, Mr. 5, Miss Valentine, and Mr. 3, which of course is played by the amazing David Dastmalchian. Finally, because Nami gets sick from being bitten by a dangerous insect, they end up looking for a doctor on Drum Island, and this is where we meet Dalton and Waypole. We already knew that Drum Island was the next arc that would be covered, way back when the first teaser was dropped with Oda drawing a picture of Chopper. But that's just
actors in One Piece who you didn't know was South African. Grant Ross as Genso, who is hilarious behind the scenes, by the way. Mr. Kutu as Lucky Root. Hey, I went to school with that guy. Aiden Scott as Helmeppo. Nice butt, by the way, brother. Mr. Manitis as Kuro. Dude was a lot of fun. Chioma as Nojiko, who is truly a nerd, by the way.
Samurai Jack, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Benton Alien Force. I love that arc.
Yandere LaRue as Karubi. Langley Kirkwood as Axehand Morgan. And Celeste Lutz, who plays Kaya. And honestly, she looked a lot more energetic in real life than she does in the series. Season 2, we have Tyrone Cook, Varna Kutze, Jazara Jaslin, Zas. And finally, Daniel Lasker, who is an amazing filmmaker and an amazing actor. And to top it all off, it's just so cool that the show's being made in Cape Town. Just the other day, I was driving past Cape Town Studios, and there Going Merry was on an incline. For some reason. Who knows? And it's just incredible hearing the South African accent in a production like this. Like, hearing Nojiko would definitely threw me for a loop, but it was amazing hearing it in that context. But what's your opinion? Do you think we should hear more South African accents in productions like these, or should we stick to British and American? Let me know. I just found the best live-action Superman suit. With this new suit on the block, there's a lot to think about. What is the best suit that we've gotten over the years? But I can definitely tell you what the worst suits are. Like, there's Kirk Allen's pajama suit, there's Christopher Reeves and his giant blue wearable condom, there's Dean Cain and his off-brand Superman suit, and whatever the f*** that we're doing in Smallville. Look at this graph, subscribe. Brand and Ruth was a step in the right direction as they started adding texture into the material, so it didn't feel like it was just wearing spandex. And along with that, they added an S symbol, which granted was a little small, but extruded it from the chest and made it more three-dimensional. But what is the best suit, guys? Obviously, there's Henry Cavill with a bunch of iterations of different suits. The first one was my personal favorite, but to the detriment of Man of Steel and the rest of those DCU movies being a darker take on the universe, the suit is just depressing to look at. So, the best suit that we've ever gotten for Superman is the Tyler Hoechlin one. Nope, not that one. Or that one. Yes, this one stands above the rest until we get Superman Legacy, which I feel like is going to completely destroy the competition. I mean, we finally got shorts back, great.
Ultra Beasts are basically SCPs. Ultra Beasts have always been weird alien versions of Pokemon. Outside of events, we might never get these Pokemon in a main series game again. The reason I'm comparing them to SCPs is because of these super awesome trailers they made for Pokemon Go. The trailers are all shot like found footage, or that they've been naturally taken on someone's phone, and then just this weird creature comes out of nowhere. Why aren't you guys subscribing? Just look at the graph. My favorite one is definitely Xurkitree, because it feels like this massive thing has such scale over this poor guy that was like, hey, why are the lights flickering? If you gave me a Detective Pikachu movie where these guys were the bad guys, I would be hella scared. There would be some very traumatized kids in that audience. Look at Celesteelias. You can't convince me that this thing is not trying to be Siren Head so bad. Just look at this amazing shot of the Nihilego swarming the streets. And the texture on that Stakataka is, mwah, chef kiss. They should really set up a top secret UB foundation, because let's do the Elite Trainer Lin tag video and answer some Pokemon questions. So my first game was Fire Red on the Game Boy, and I picked Charmander, which quickly became my favorite Pokemon and favorite starter of all time. My least favorite is Chikorita, followed closely by Sobble. Pokemon designs are always a mixed bag. I think they've stayed the same. We get bad and good ones every generation. I'd pick one of the cozy starter towns, probably Postwick. Not really new, but I think it would be pretty funny if we got a normal type evolution. Me and the Graph have been talking, and we think you should subscribe. I know people don't like that rock and ground are different types, but I'd also probably add crystal type for Pokemon like these. I think I'd like Inteleon a lot more if he was more lizard and less human. Honestly, I don't think anyone would be mad if they just changed them. I think more collabs like Hatsune Miku and the Japanese collabs that they do, and less like the American celebrities that haven't picked up a new game since Crystal. I think Charizard has had enough love, but I would probably give it the ghost treatment like they did with Typhlosion and Legends Arceus. I'm gonna tag our subscribers. Let me know in the comments or make your own video. Lastly, go check out Lin's video, and without further ado, D&D meets real estate is not what I thought we would be getting as an animated show. Dungeon Flippers has a really cool plot. I'm not gonna lie, I've been watching a lot of indie animation and pilots that people have been putting out on YouTube lately, and there's some really top quality stuff. And when I saw the trailer for Dungeon Flippers, my first impression was that it was going to be very repetitive if the whole show was just going to be about finding this character a house. But if you've watched the first episode, and I won't spoil anything, you know that this goes a lot deeper than that. I really love the Chimera character Morley and the dragon Cleveland, and it looks like we're getting a lot more characters that are also real estate agents. But Morley's clearly the focus, and her goal of building a house as a real estate agent is really fun, and I like a series that kind of has a steady progression going on in the background. Maybe every time she adds a little more to her house, and eventually we get to see that finished result. Want to see more indie animation content? Hit subscribe. Let's rank all the emotions from Inside Out. First up, we've got joy. Who doesn't like to be happy? This is one of the only positive emotions in this show. Let's put that up in S tier. I don't really get angry, but it is necessary sometimes. Let's put it in B tier. We all need a good cry every now and then. Let's put sadness in S tier as well. I'm probably going to put this in a low C because I don't really get scared. Boo! Whoa. Hey, you know what would make everybody feel better? Look at this graph and hit subscribe. The official description says that disgust protects you from poison, both physically and socially. I always just think of it as sarcasm, so A tier. Anxiety is the worst, but I can't say I don't experience it a lot, so let's put it in B tier. And finally, the last emotion, wolf. Let's put wolf in a solid A tier. What should I rank next? More emotions? Let me know in the comments. What has Pokemon Go got to do with Weird Al Yankovic? Pokemon the movie 2000 came out in, well, the year 2000, and it featured a bunch of really cool songs. There was even this TV special hosted by Cal Mitchell from Keenan and Cal that went behind the scenes of the soundtrack and had some crazy people in it, like Kobe Bryant, Christina Aguilera, NSYNC, and David Gallagher. Yeah, I don't know who David Gallagher is either. Look at this graph. Weird Al's contribution to the soundtrack was a song called Polkamon. It was a polka song featuring a bunch of names of Pokemon, including Ditto twice, which is a nice touch. When he tried to include the song on his compilation box set called Squeezebox, the complete works of Weird Al Yankovic, he was denied permission. The alleged reason for this was because Pokemon had recently gotten very popular because of the 20th anniversary and the release of Pokemon Go. I hope that answers the question. Wolverine has some pretty cool live-action suits. Let's rank them. The final suit of the original trilogy was very cool. I loved the yellow lining, and even though the actors couldn't move, I love the nod to Ultimate X-Men, so that's going to be an A tier. Wolverine Origins, he gets a very cool jacket, but it's just a jacket, so B tier. I love when he showed up in the retro Weapon X outfit. That's very accurate and a very nice cameo. A tier. In the Wolverine, he doesn't have a suit, and no, the deleted scene doesn't count. That's gonna go in trash. You may be wondering why the red graph. Well, that's because you haven't hit subscribe. The suit in X-Men Days of Future Past was definitely more practical, and the colors are there, but they're a little too subtle. C tier. In Logan, I kind of like the suit with the claws out. Kind of reminds me of Patches. B tier. Finally, Deadpool and Wolverine absolutely killed it. No arguments. Thank you, Ryan Reynolds. And you too, Marvel. S tier. That is to say, when he's not shirtless or naked, this is Raymond's darkest timeline. Captain Laserhawk is a wild show. Nobody expected a Ubisoft crossover animated series with Bobby Pills working on it, but it happened, and it's great. It's got everything. Gay romance, Metal Gear Solid, live action parts, Power Rangers, Far Cry, the Rabbids, this weird scene with a cow. I'm not showing it, you know the one. If you want to help level up the graph, hit subscribe. Initially, I was a little bit worried when they started doing basically the plot of Suicide Squad, but the references and stuff they make in the show just way make up for it. Surprisingly, my favorite character was Bullfrog, the Assassin's Creed frog, and I really liked the live action sequences, which reminded me of games like Harvester and Phantasmagoria, games that back in the day used real life actors in them. But the intention of the director is way cooler, because it was that in the virtual reality, you are a real human, meaning that in reality, you're a cartoon, and that's just crazy. I might have come for Raymond, but I stayed for the plot, because Adventure Time character tier list. Finn is a great main character, and even though he started off very goofy, his character really gained a lot of depth, mostly from all the trauma he had to deal with. I'm gonna put him in Blue Balooby. Chances are Jake is your favorite character. He's definitely the most relatable character, and that's what makes him so lovable. Deep down, we all just want to play games, sleep, and eat bacon pancakes. I'm putting him in Algebraic. Marceline is that cool older sibling that pretends like they don't care about anything. She's a musician, she has one of the best backstories in the series, and a really great arc. I'm gonna put her up in Algebraic. Do you know what time it is? It's look at the graph and hit subscribe time. I feel like a lot of things that go wrong in this show are somehow caused by Princess Bubblegum. She's the smartest character, but she's constantly making these very dumb decisions, so I'm just gonna put her in cool. I can't say I really like Alice P. I know she's definitely people's favorite, and I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate for this, but I'm putting her down in Bad Biscuits.
Oh my glab, oh my glab, oh my glab.
For Ice King, again, Simon has one of the best backstories in the show. Also, he's voiced by Tom Kenny, so Algebraic. Let me know which characters I should rank next for a live-action Pokemon series is happening, reportedly being developed by Netflix, and with Red as the main character, I think we can assume that this is probably going to be an adaptation of the mini-series Pokemon Origins, which follows the plot of the Kanto games. If you haven't watched it, the series focuses on key moments from the story, choosing a starter, battling Team Rocket, and finally catching Mewtwo. Detective Pikachu did a great job of bringing Pokemon into reality, especially with RJ Palmer working on the designs, but it only gave us glimpses into the world of Pokemon that we know. There was one battle, barely any catching, and the main character didn't even have a Pokemon. I know Pokemon has moved away from the catch 'em all mentality, but it would be nice to have a protagonist who at least tried. Look at the graph and hit subscribe. I also think, similar to Pokemon Go, this series is a great way to introduce players to new Pokemon. They don't have to go crazy, but background trainers from other regions having Sinnoh Pokemon, or having a few Pokemon that have migrated over from Johto. All that said, I'm very excited to see Kanto brought to life. It's always great to see Pokemon existing, and let's rank gem weapons from Steven Universe. Defense is the best offense. I think an impenetrable bubble is actually an awesome ability, and it can also be used as a Captain America style shield. A tier. A whip fits nicely with Amethyst being a wild character. Having a weapon that has some range as well as power is a nice balance. It also makes all the fusion weapons it goes with way cooler. It's going in the backpack. Pearl's spear. At first I thought it was weird that she didn't have swords as her primary weapon, but someone pointed out that because she's a knight, a long range weapon like a spear is much more fitting. I like the idea of keeping my opponents at a distance, so A tier. Link your mind with the energy of all existing matter, channeling it into the subscribe button. Garnet's gauntlets are the equivalent of having Hulk hands, and I'm here for it. I love the idea that as a fusion weapon, this likely implies that the gauntlets are rubies and the knuckles, or the ability to launch them, is sapphires, but most likely it's just Ruby's gauntlets getting an upgrade. Either way, it's going in the backpack. What should I rank next? FNAF fans are really winning winning right now. There's just so much FNAF stuff happening. There's a trailer for Secret of the Mimic that's coming out next year, which looks like it's going to be the earliest game in the timeline, taking place in 1979. We also got 5 Laps at Freddy's, the Mario Kart clone, which is of course filled with Easter eggs and has a direct tie into the Midnight Motorist minigame. Speaking of 8 bits and Easter eggs, Into the Pit looks amazing, and while I haven't played it yet, I definitely intend to, because I just love the look of this game. If you've seen our videos and you always come back, look at this graph and hit subscribe. Dorco interviewed Scott and we found out that, well, even Scott doesn't know what's in the box. And lastly, we got some sneak peeks of the puppets from the second FNAF movie, and it looks like we're getting the toy animatronics, and the withered animatronics, and possibly some of the script? Matt Pat's gonna need to come out of retirement because it's my birthday, you guys asked for it, let's rank Gravity Falls characters. Both twins are very relatable. Dipper is awkward and obsessed with strange things, plus he's sensible, sympathetic, and a great brother most of the time. A. I aspire to be as goofy and carefree as Mabel. People don't always think of Mabel as having a lot of depth, but I heavily related to her anxiety about growing up. She also rocks some pretty stylish sweaters, so let's keep the twins together. A. Alex Hirsch admitted to putting all the cool in Wendy, and it shows. She's voiced by Linda Cardellini, aka the coolest Velma, so no wonder Dipper has a crush on her. A. The Council of Mabels have decided your fate. Look at the graph, hit subscribe. Seuss has the best lines, and he can fix anything and make it 10 times better. I'm gonna put him in God tier. Stan had the best arc of the series, seemingly starting off as this cranky scam artist, and now he's everyone's favorite grunkle. He cares about his family, and he's kind of a badass throughout the show. S tier. I love a great villain, but I don't know, he creeps me out. Probably gonna put him in a low... Hey, what's happened? How did he get in God tier? That was just for Seuss. Did you know Gravity Falls is based on a true story? Okay, maybe not exactly, but Alex Hirsch, the creator of the show, who we all know and love from those wacky posts about everybody's favorite omnipotent triangle, is actually a twin himself. As a special documentary on one of the DVDs, Alex did a whole interview with his sister where he talked about how the twins Dipper and Mabel were very much based on his own relationship with his twin sister Ariel, which is where Mabel gets her love of pigs from. And because Alex obviously relates to Dipper the most, that's why Dipper is usually the one who's learning a valuable lesson in every episode. Look at the graph, hit subscribe, and remember,
when there's no cops around, anything's legal.
Ariel actually makes a cameo in the episode Boys Crazy as one of Pacifica's friends.
Talking to me!
The episode itself was actually her idea that came from her childhood obsession of the band NSYNC. And right at the end, there's a coded message that says, "Happy now, Ariel?" So maybe there's no real Grunkle, Stan, Seuss, or Wendy, but there's definitely a real Dipper and Mabel, which is why I said, should the Minecraft movie have been animated? Minecraft just dropped the first teaser, and it's getting a very lukewarm response. We might have another Sonic situation on our hands where a studio is about to get very bullied. The trailer doesn't look that bad. I actually like the look of the world and some of the mobs, but the actors do feel really out of place, and not just because they've been isekai'd in. That's not to say I think a horrific, hyper-realistic Steve should have been the way to go. I think the whole thing should have just been animated. The Mario movie did a great job of staying true to its world and making a movie that anyone could enjoy. The same for Detective Pikachu and the FNAF movie. These are movies that, at their core, were for the fans. This movie feels like it's kind of doing the opposite of that. It's trying to jump on the video game movie series trend, and it's looking more like Borderlands than Fallout right now. If you want to see me talk more about the rise and fall of live-action adaptations, hit subscribe. I also want to point out it seems to take inspiration from Minecraft Legends, which is a spin-off game. If they were going to base this off of anything, it should have been Minecraft Story Mode because it had animated characters, told a great story within the world, and was made for Minecraft fans. Let's rank Minecraft movie mobs. I know the sheep is where a lot of people checked out, but honestly I think the wool and general vibe of a realistic Minecraft sheep is there. But this gross uncanny factor that they're going with, I don't like it. Let's put it in disturbing. I honestly think they've done a good job with the piglins, and they've taken a lot of inspiration from Legends because I'm pretty sure that the big bad is the Great Hog, so good. The piglins are using the ghosts as slaves. They look really creepy but really sad. I like that they've got like the magma inside them. Let's also put them in a good. I'm very hopeful that there is going to be a wolf companion and it's going to be very cute. I also think this is one of the best looking animals in the trailer. Great. You don't need a diamond pickaxe to look at the graph and hit subscribe. I'm actually keen for Jack Black being Steve, but I'm with everybody on the weird polo neck v-neck situation. I'm also keen to see if zombies are just green Jack Blacks. looks. Let's go with meh. The creeper is pretty hard to tell, but it looks like they've gone with the classic mossy style for it. It's definitely one of the better looking mobs. I'm gonna go with great. For the llama, again, I like the texture, but I don't like the face. I'm gonna put it in disturbing. These are all hyper-realistic nightmares, but Dungeon Meshi tier list. Now this guy can cook. Senshi is an awesome character. I love how he's made the dungeon into his own personal pantry with like the vegetable golems. He's a great mix of serious and silly, and he's a great tragic backstory. Delicious. There are so many great reaction gifts of Marcel. She has some powerful magic that she brings to this very dysfunctional party. Tasty. Halflings are probably my favorite fantasy race, so I liked Chilchuck from the get-go. Chilchuck is a hater, but he's a key part of the group. Tasty. Want to see more anime tier lists? Look at the graph and hit subscribe. Laios is great. He's goofy, and even though his mind is always on eating monsters, he knows he has to save his sister and keep going. He's like a D&D character who's just going with the flow. Delicious. It's oddly refreshing to see Izitsumi be a cat girl who's not being used for fan service. I did think it was hella funny when she did start acting like a cat though. I'm just gonna put her in yum. I love how they built up Fallon as this very sweet, carefree character in the flashbacks. It made it so much sadder when they got her back just to lose her again. I really want to see more for next season, so for now, yum. Hope you're hungry. I just cooked up a Dungeon Meshi food tier list. I knew the food was going to be good from the first dish. I bet that broth is amazing. This is an easy delicious. This just looks like a really good quiche. I'm going to put that in tasty. I imagine this one is just like the perfect roast chicken. It's also stuffed with healing herbs, so delicious. Nothing too crazy. Looks like a pretty solid omelet. It's got some nice bacon inside it. Let's say tasty. Before we go deeper down the dungeon, look at the graph and hit subscribe. I'm not a huge fan of deep fried food, and I don't think I want to eat a bat. Meh. Shellfish, on the other hand, I'm a huge fan of. I would definitely put the living armor, soup, stir fry, and grilled all up in gourmet, but Laios says the steamed is gross. Avoid. Yeah, this one's just bugs. I'll probably still eat Senshi's bread, but I'll avoid the rest. Again, shellfish is great. It might need a little bit of butter and lemon, but tasty. I don't care how it's prepared or how much it looks like ribs. I don't think I would eat a giant parasite. Avoid. You can't go wrong with a good dessert, even if you have to fight a few ghosts to get it. This is going in delicious. Let me know what your favorite food was, and if you want to see me do more. I kinda just want to try everything on the what makes Meowth from Team Rocket so special. I've talked about the history of Meowth before, and it was a pretty big part of the original anime as to why Meowth learned to walk and talk. For some reason, as the games have gone on, somebody just kind of forgot that normal Meowths shouldn't be able to walk, and they walk everywhere. Official art, the TCG, the video games, the spin-off games, he's walking. Meowth was robbed. Even talking's not that unique because there's a bunch of Pokemon that can talk, and not even just the legendaries. I see you, Lucario. That's right, look at the graph and hit subscribe. Another thing that doesn't line up is that Meowth from Team Rocket can Gigantamax. He goes from talking Meowth to Tall King Meowth very quickly. I'm so sorry. This is only weird because from what I've read of the lore, only Pokemon that were born and raised in Galar should be able to have this ability. If Meowth grew up somewhere that was close enough for him to go to Hollywood, presumably based in the Unova region, he very clearly wasn't born in Galar. So if all Meowths can walk, and a bunch of Pokemon can talk, let's rank regular show characters. I think Mordecai had the most growing up to do in the show. He could be a total jerk, but he was a good person when he needed to be or when someone needed help. B tier. Rigby had a bratty younger sibling energy for the longest time, but he definitely grew out of that. It also felt like the most of the trouble he caused was somehow caused by Mordecai first. I can see why most people prefer him to Mordecai, so A tier. I love Pops. The idea of this old-timey gent who's so full of childlike wonder is great. I love episodes centered around him, and I'm so glad he got an amazing ending. S tier. You know who else looked at the graph and hit subscribe?
My mom!
Thanks, Mom. Muscle Man was a weird character, but he grows on you. Especially, you know, that thing he says again and again. I like that his actual strength seems to be his strong relationships with other characters throughout the show. I think he's earned himself an A tier. The question, how would you deal with immortality, is answered perfectly by Skips. He's so willing to help and make an impact on people's lives, even though he knows that he'll eventually lose them. Skips was my favorite S tier. Who would have thought a gumball machine would have made such a good antagonist? I always felt for Benton, who was just trying to keep things regular, but was constantly dealing with everyone else's weirdness. And for that, A tier. The Powerpuff Girls character tier list. Bubbles is the joy and the laughter of the group. I love that Bubbles' powers include the ability to talk any language and communicate with animals. I know she's usually seen as the weaker one, but let's not forget she can be A tier. Even though she's usually portrayed as very bossy, it's kind of necessary to hold this team together. I also thought characters with ice powers were really cool. A tier. I liked that Buttercup was the tough one who was cool and violent, like a tiny Batman, but there were a few moments in the show that really made me dislike her, like when she sided with the Gangrene Gang or teased that kid for eating paste. That episode still haunts me. B tier. Hello, Mr. Mayor? Townsville is being attacked by a giant graph, and you need people to subscribe? I'll be right there. The professor fell into the adult who doesn't believe the kids trope, even though his kids are shown to be very capable superheroes. C tier. I didn't like the mayor when I was younger, but watching now I can appreciate that he's a stereotypical politician who doesn't know what he's doing. B tier. Okay, I know you had a crush on Miss Bellum, and what's crazier is we never saw her face. She was the only logical adult in the show, and side note, I love seeing the creative ways people cosplay her. S tier. And thus, the day was saved thanks to I'm Chris, it's nearly Halloween, let's rank the Powerpuff Girl villains. Mojo Jojo was the absolute king of monologues, and it's such a great origin that he actually had a hand in creating the girls. That's an evil. Him was so charming and entertaining while still being terrifying. His episodes were so dark, and his voice gave me shivers. Evil. Roddy Rough Boys did gender bending before it was cool and are basically a canon ship. They are overrated, but I like that they're the opposite of the girls. Super bad. Who's your favorite villain? Let me know in the comments, look at the graph, and hit subscribe. I don't know if Fuzzy can be considered much of a villain. He doesn't really commit a lot of crime, but I still voted Fuzzy for mayor. Bad. Princess is basically just a spoiled rich kid who built a suit. Let's put this tiny Iron Man in. Kinda mean. I genuinely did not believe this character was called Mr. Mime. I know he only showed up once, but he was so overpowered. Plus we got that banger of a song out of it. Super bad. The Amoeba Boys were by far the funniest villains, but they didn't really ever do anything. Not that bad. Seducer was a genuinely good reoccurring villain. I love a Master of Disguise. Super bad. The Gangrene Gang were more of a street level group of thugs, but they did have their moments. Bad. Is it just me, or is this better than Candy? Hi, I'm Chris, and Pokemon has been doing something cool the last few Halloweens. Starting in 2022, Pokemon TCG has released these bundles of mini boosters, which can be handed out instead of sweets on Halloween. We don't really have Halloween in South Africa, but we do have Pokemon, and when I was growing up, I would really have appreciated something that lasts a little bit longer than a Kit Kat. There are 30 spooky themed cards in the set, well, except Pikachu, who didn't even bother to dress up. They're all from various expansions, but they have this Pikachu jack-o'-lantern stamp in the corner, which really makes them stand out in your average deck. Which spooky Pokemon is your favorite? Look at the graph and hit subscribe. There are some really cool cards in the set. Of course, we have Pikachu's scary counterpart Mimikyu. We also have Ogerpon and the Loyal 3, which are some of the holographics in the set. I also love the art on this Darkrai and Umbreon, and this really cool looking Dark-type Gengar, which I'm not sure if it counts as a Delta species. I'm gonna try and get my hands on some packs. I hope you guys enjoyed me geeking out on the TCG. I just wanted to know, what Halloween special gave you trauma? Hi, I'm Chris, and on top of unsettling episodes of cartoons and just the entirety of Courage, Flapjack, and Our Real Monsters, there were some cartoon specials that just really freaked me out. Scooby-Doo movies stand out as major contributors to my trauma. A lot of them revealed that the monsters were real, which is the complete opposite of the humans are the real bad guys trope that they usually did. Something I probably shouldn't have been watching at a young age was The Simpsons Treehouse of Horrors. The parodies were fun, even if I didn't know the originals, but they lent into body horror, and that triggered me. And speaking of, so did that iconic episode of SpongeBob. Before we continue, look at this haunted graph and hit subscribe. Most of these specials I watched out of order because we don't have Halloween here, so half the time it was like out of nowhere that my episode of Adventure Time was a murder mystery, Ben 10 was suddenly sci-fi horror, or Frankie was locked outside in the rain with a hook-handed stalker. Yeah, nightmares. A lot of these episodes pulled a Goosebumps and ended on these weird open endings, and as a kid you just hoped things would be normal again in the next episode of your show. There are so many great specials that I left out. Let me know in the comments if you'd like a part 2. I think Netflix might be about to ruin another beloved franchise. Look, I didn't hate the live-action adaptations of Avatar: The Last Airbender and One Piece. I kind of enjoyed them. But ultimately, when something gets adapted these days, my love for the original just ends up increasing. It feels like we've gone full circle, from execs having all the control over what is made, to the creatives having the power in their hands, right back to the execs just having the control and trying to make as much money as possible. I think good adaptations are possible, but I would really like Netflix to stop using the term, it'll be like the original meets Game of Thrones. Netflix, at the end of Game of Thrones didn't even want to be Game of Thrones. So no, Netflix, we don't want Narnia meets anything, and we especially don't want you to make it a cinematic universe. Nobody wants that. Look at what happened to Marvel. Plus, what possible spin-off did you have in mind? Mr. Tumnus's origins? Meet the Beavers? Please don't. And don't take away Edmund's flaws like you did with Sokka, or cut out scenes because people might get offended. These are characters set during the war. They were probably sexist and racist. There isn't a lot of info on this other than a couple of statements from the directors, but can you name all 4 unevolved Gigantamax Pokemon? Raichu is the first one to luck out, as Pikachu was an obvious choice. As the series mascot and the most recognizable Pokemon, it had to get one of these forms. The Pikachu form looks like it might have eaten too much of Brock's cooking, and is likely a callback to the original Sujimori artwork from Gen 1. And of course, despite it being from Kanto, Ash's Pikachu can G-Max in the anime. The same can be said for Team Rocket's Meowth, stealing the spot from Persian, as well as its 2 other forms and their evolutions. It makes sense as it's also a staple of the series, and in many ways, Pikachu's opposite. Before we continue, help support the channel by subscribing. The graph says you haven't. Next up is Eevee, which makes sense as Pokemon has pushed it more and more to be Pikachu's counterpart, starting with the Let's Go games. It also makes more sense for it to get a G-Max as a Pokemon with multiple evolutions than give a G-Max form to each evolution. Congrats if you guessed that the last unevolved form is Dandadan. Originally a single stage Pokemon, it recently got an evolution in the second DLC for Scarlet and Violet. In Gen 8, Game Freak likely hadn't even planned to give it an evolution. We won't see G-Max again till Gen 8 remakes, and that's why I asked, I believe that Minecraft Movie Edition is gonna be good. Look, I was just as quick to light my torch and complain about yet another video game movie using the tired old isekai trope, but I didn't need much to change my mind after seeing this trailer. When the first teaser dropped, reactions were mostly negative, but one voice stood out, Mumbo Jumbo. His video didn't tear it apart, instead he highlighted what he liked about it, and that gave me hope, because Mumbo Jumbo, along with Dan TDM, LD Shadow Lady, and probably some other Minecraft creators, have been consulting behind the scenes. Plus Jens is involved. All of this just makes me think that the movie is in the hands of the community. I think we might be judging this too harshly. The sets look fantastic, especially now that we've seen it with some better lighting, and sure, the first ones we saw were a bit janky, but the newer ones were looking pretty good in my opinion. I just want to pet the dog. I don't think isekai has to be a bad thing. Super Mario Bros. Did it and no one complained. I will say Jason Momoa's character is giving me Pixels flashbacks, but the moments like longing for the mines, using lava to cook a chicken, and taming a wolf genuinely made me excited. It really feels like they know what they're doing, and that's why. Let's rank the girl shows we all grew up watching. Kim Possible. You only had to say the word spy or gadget to me as a kid and I was sold. This show also made me always want to try Mexican food, plus Rufus was the GOAT. S tier. Totally Spies. Again, spies are awesome. There were some questionable episodes I don't really remember, but I do remember the toys from McDonald's were awesome. A tier. Juniper Lee. Seeing a secret world is still one of my favorite tropes in shows. It was messed up that she was trapped in the town though, still an A tier. Powerpuff Girls. The original show had some of the best jokes, mature themes, and great plots. Like, how many shows could get away with him? S tier. Barbie movies. They deserve their own tier list. Hit subscribe and let me know if I should rank those next. Atomic Betty. I didn't watch this a lot. I like the art style, but I remember the sidekick was annoying. C tier. Winx Club. I remember trying to watch this too late into the plot and just being lost, but I like the premise and what I've seen is pretty good. B tier. She-Ra was a much more recent watch and it had amazing characters, a great plot, and that ending. S tier. Middle stage Firestarters tier list. He really does fit the awkward middle trope between the adorable Charmander and the powerful Charizard. A tier. Pignite actually suits being bipedal, even though we'd all prefer Emboar to be quadrupedal. B tier. There's a reason it's in Pokken instead of Delphox. A tier. I'm ranking you low for not staying on all fours like a good cat. C tier. Before this video evolves into its final form, look at the graph and hit subscribe. Bias towards this whole line, let's put this Goku monkey in S tier. Look, it's doing its best to transition to Blaziken, it really is. C tier. A painful reminder that sometimes Pokemon just don't change that much. I do prefer it to Typhlosion. B tier. I so wish this wasn't a phase. A tier. I love this line, but he's so derpy. C tier. Today I thought, why not rank
Superman in cartoons tier list. Legion of Superheroes, the animated series, was a goated show. The one thing that stands out about this design is the fact that we get a much younger Superman, and a lovely little detail is the fact that there's a little S shape in his head. A tier. Now in the Batman series from 2004, we get a Superman cameo that is absolutely amazing. Firstly, the style of the show is already great. What I really like about this design is the fact that they didn't try anything too fancy, they just made sure that the design worked well within this universe. My favorite thing about the design is the fact that the cape kind of blankets over his shoulders and doesn't just disappear into his collar. S tier. Not your first time here? Subscribe, it's free. The toned down colors probably wasn't the best choice, but I kinda like it. And because this depiction is meant to go off the 1940s version of Superman, they went with the black S symbol. And I've already said how I feel about that. That's a B tier. The style of the show has the characters very over-designed and shiny for some reason, and that's not really my thing. So I'll put this guy in a B. Crisis on Two Earths has a design that is pretty good, but for some reason it feels very intimidating. I think it's those eyebrows, but it's still an A tier.
Let's rank Dandadan characters. I can relate to Okaroon on another level. Just swap out aliens for Pokemon and that was me in high school. His character is grounded and vulnerable and not afraid to take responsibility, and I love that his speed form's design isn't overcomplicated. Turbo. Momo is a fresh take on Gyarados. She's got a good heart. You can see she has a strong sense of justice right from the beginning when she stands up for Okaroon. She's such a genuine character and her occasionally goofy moments make her all the more relatable. And when she outran Speed Granny, I got instant Black Whip vibes. Turbo. Before I rank the rest, go full throttle, look at the graph, and hit subscribe. Turbo Granny came out of the gate chaotic and I was not ready for it. She made an incredible first major villain for the series, setting the tone perfectly. My favorite part is that she's become this reluctant ally who's here for the free food and to make sarcastic remarks. She started off terrifying and now she's just this snarky little cat. A tier. Psycho's alignment is chaotic cool. She comes across as stone cold and fearless when she's facing down the supernatural, but what makes her so compelling is her moments of genuine care, and she's also a sucker for any compliment. Another Turbo. Don't tell me Ira is not not Natsuki from DDLC. I love how they tied in the tsundere character to the story and gave her a similar set of powers to Ocarin. The rivalry with Momo is absolutely unhinged, but it's so entertaining. I was really grown on me as a character. A tier. Hold on to your weenies. Hi, I'm Chris, and 'tis the season. I thought let's rank the Christmas movies I grew up with. I remember being in hysterics watching this movie, even if it got a collective groan from the adults around me. Admittedly, I still can't watch him eat that spaghetti. A tier. I know people rag on the uncanny animation, but as a kid I just thought taking a train to see Santa was such a cool idea. I'm still waiting. A tier. Probably the start of my love for Jim Carrey movies. I was also a sucker for Christmas movies with dogs in them, so for Max, S tier. I feel like this movie caused me a lot of paranoia. I always wanted to set traps, but I think I was more afraid of getting someone hurt. Even when I was younger, I felt sorry for Bob and Harry. B tier. These are still some of my favorite movies to watch around Christmas. My favorite character was Bernard. I haven't watched the series yet, but I am hyped because apparently he comes back. Whole trilogy in A tier. I really loved this movie. I think it was one of my favorite takes on Santa's workshop. There's this really sweet message that naughty or nice, all kids deserve a present. A tier. Most versions of the story have given me nightmares, but none more than this. Gonzo and Rizzo narrating, Michael Caine as Scrooge, and all the amazing original songs. S tier. Rudolph is one of the more obscure Christmas movies. I had it on VHS, and it was an hour-long movie about a mutant reindeer with some banging songs and Whoopi Goldberg as the Ice Witch. A tier. Die Hard is the best Christmas movie. Let's put that straight in S tier. Merry Christmas and happy holidays, everyone.